You've probably heard about focus, hyperfocus, meditation, mindful breathing. But if all of this really worked the way they say, why do so many people still feel overwhelmed, distracted, and out of control of their own minds? We live in the age of urgency. Everything needs to be done yesterday. The day barely starts and you already feel behind. You jump from one task to another without even realizing it. When was the last time you truly stopped to breathe? What do you mean? I breathe all the time. Yes, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but what if I told you that it's not just about breathing, it's how you breathe that might be sabotaging your focus and mental performance? And that explains a lot. How many times have you tried starting something new? Maybe a course, learning a new language, reading that book you promised to finish. At first you're motivated, but little by little, your focus fades, your enthusiasm disappears, and before you know it, you've abandoned yet another project halfway. And then that frustrating thought kicks in. Why can't I stay focused? Now, what if I told you that the problem isn't you, your discipline or your willpower, but an invisible factor you've never even considered? Our brain is an incredibly powerful machine, capable of processing information, generating ideas and solving problems in ways we can't even imagine. But here's the truth. Most people use this machine as if it were just a simple typewriter. Think about it. A modern computer can run complex programs, edit videos, create stunning graphics, and connect the entire world. But if you only use it for typing documents and checking emails, it's still a waste of potential. The same thing happens with your mind. Are you truly using your brain to its full potential? Or are you unknowingly wasting most of your cognitive power? The key to unlocking this power isn't about trying harder to focus. It's about understanding how focus actually works in the brain and how breathing and relaxation are the key triggers to access this state. You spent years in school learning how to read. At first, every word was a challenge, but over time, reading became automatic. You gained an incredible skill, the ability to absorb any kind of knowledge. But stop and think for a moment. How do you actually use that skill today? In reality, most people only read the bare minimum to get by. Grocery labels, WhatsApp messages, maybe a quick internet article. But what about books? What about the text that could actually expand your mind? Here's the ironic part. When watching a movie, you probably prefer the dubbed version because reading subtitles feels too exhausting. Now let's take this a step further. If you barely use something as fundamental as reading to grow intellectually, how many other abilities does your brain have that you're completely neglecting? As time goes on, life starts to feel like an endless cycle of automation. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. And what about the things that could actually change your life? Learning a new language, switching careers, developing a skill you've always wanted. You think about it, but then doubt creeps in. What if I can't do it? The fear of the unknown traps us in a cycle where we know we have potential, but we can't seem to access it. But what if I told you the problem isn't your ability to learn? It's how your brain has been trained to conserve energy at all costs. It's not a matter of whether you can do it or not. The real question is, are you using your mind the right way? Many people feel like they've lost the ability to learn. Have you ever felt that way? That little voice in your head saying, "Can I still do this? Is it too late to start over?" What most people don't realize is that your brain never loses its ability to learn. It simply follows the patterns you reinforce over time. And this brings us to a fundamental concept. Meditation isn't just a spiritual practice or a way to relax. It's an extremely powerful mental tool. You've probably heard that meditation can help reduce stress and improve focus. But what does that really mean? The truth is, meditation is the peak of a process. It's not just sitting with your eyes closed and hoping your mind goes silent. To reach that state, your brain needs to go through a few steps first. You need to train your mind to stop getting distracted, and that doesn't happen by accident. That's why across all cultures that have explored higher mental states, from the Egyptians and Hindus to Tibetan monks, one common principle always appears: breathe, relax. But why? If you think about it, everyone breathes automatically. So why do so many traditions emphasize something we already do all the time? The answer lies in how we breathe. People always hear they should take deep breaths when meditating, but very few actually understand why it's so important. As I studied more about how the mind works, I began to understand why breathing is so emphasized in meditation and concentration practices. There's a physiological reason for this. Your brain operates at different electrical frequencies, and each one is linked to a specific mental state. When you're both focused and relaxed at the same time, your brain enters what's known as the alpha wave state. These waves are simply patterns of neural impulses, and for your neurons to generate them correctly, they require energy. Now here's the crucial part that most people overlook. Every time your brain needs energy, it consumes oxygen. In other words, if you want your mind to perform at its best, you need to make sure your brain is getting enough oxygen. But there's a problem. Most people breathe just enough to survive, not to optimize their brain function. And that makes all the difference. Breathing to survive versus breathing to perform. Shallow, superficial breathing keeps you alive, but it doesn't provide enough support for higher cognitive functions, like planning, visualizing the future, or solving complex problems. Now think about moments when you need deep concentration, when you're trying to remember something important, when you need to make a difficult decision, when you're trying to learn something new. These activities require far more from your brain than routine tasks, like brushing your teeth or walking. And the more complex the mental task, the more oxygen your brain needs to sustain it. But breathing alone isn't the only piece of this puzzle. There's a second essential factor: relaxation. The link between relaxation and mental visualization. Have you ever noticed that when you're tense or anxious, your mind feels chaotic? That's because before any action happens in your body, it first happens in your brain. Imagine lifting your hand. Even though it seems like a simple movement, your brain created the action before your body executed it. Now think on a larger scale. When you're feeling nervous, worried, or anxious, your body reacts before you even consciously recognize it. Your muscles tighten. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes short and irregular. In other words, all physical tension is actually a reflection of what's happening in your brain. So if you want to create a calmer, more creative, and more productive mental state, you need to start with relaxation. And that brings us to the real question. How can you breathe and relax the right way to reach a high-performance mental state? Now imagine someone who is extremely anxious. They might be sitting completely still, yet their body is full of tension. Their shoulders are tight, their jaw is clenched, their hands fidgety. But what's really happening? This tension didn't start in the body, it started in the brain. The brain sends commands to the muscles, and they respond instantly. Even if the person appears motionless, on the inside their brain is working overtime, burning an enormous amount of energy just to sustain that tension. And here's a crucial detail. The more chaotic and unorganized your thoughts are, the more mental exhaustion you experience. This overload creates mental noise, a background buzz of unnecessary brain activity that prevents you from thinking clearly, making good decisions, and maintaining focus for extended periods. Now, if this mental noise consumes so much energy, the question is, how can we reduce it? The answer is simple: conscious relaxation. Mental silence isn't about stopping your thoughts, it's about relaxing your body. Many people believe that quieting the mind means forcing themselves to stop thinking. But that's not true. Real mental silence doesn't come from the absence of thoughts. It comes from entering a state of deep relaxation. Think about this. When you relax your body, your muscles stop receiving constant tension signals from the brain. As a result, your brain activity also slows down. It's like closing multiple unnecessary tabs on your computer. Suddenly, the system runs smoother and more efficiently. Now here's the key takeaway. The less physical tension you hold, the less mental noise you create. The less mental noise, the clearer and sharper your focus becomes. This deep state of relaxation doesn't mean apathy or drowsiness. Quite the opposite. It's in this state that your brain becomes the most efficient for high-focus activities. Whether you're studying, creating, solving problems, or making decisions, the more you can consciously relax, the better your mental performance will be. Breathing and relaxation, the fuel for high mental performance. Now that we know breathing and relaxation aren't just wellness techniques, but actual performance-enhancing tools, it's clear why so many ancient cultures begin any mental practice with breathe, relax. If your brain needs oxygen to function at its best, and relaxation helps reduce wasted energy, then combining both creates the perfect state for focus and creativity. In other words, the idea that take a deep breath and relax is just a cliché in meditation couldn't be further from the truth. These are physiological processes essential for your brain to operate at its highest level. Now that you understand this, the real question is, what's stopping you from applying this in your daily life? In the next chapter, we'll explore how to put this into practice to transform your mental performance. If you've ever tried to concentrate on something for a long time and found your mind wandering, know that this doesn't happen by accident. Focus is not your brain's natural state. Our brain wasn't designed to lock onto a single task for extended periods. It evolved to constantly scan the environment, processing multiple external stimuli at once. Now think about the difference between being distracted and being focused. Distraction is a passive state. You're absorbing random information, feeling the wind, hearing distant conversations, checking phone notifications. You don't have to try to be distracted, because that's your brain's default mode. Focus, on the other hand, is an active state. It requires a conscious decision. I will pay attention to this and ignore everything else. But here's the most important detail. Focusing takes energy. Focus and mental energy. Why do you get tired so fast? This process consumes neural resources and energy, which explains why studying, reading, or working on something complex can feel so draining after a while. So here's the big question. If focus is so energy-consuming, how can we make it more sustainable? The answer lies in something we've already discussed: breathing and relaxation. If your mind is already overloaded and tense, trying to focus feels even harder. But if you learn to reduce tension before starting, your ability to concentrate increases significantly. And here's something most people don't realize. Focus is also a mental muscle that can be trained. The will to focus needs to be exercised too. Many people claim they struggle to focus, but the truth is, they've never actually trained their ability to concentrate. Focusing isn't just about wanting to do it or not. It's something that needs to be developed through practice. If you've never actively trained your attention, your brain will keep running on autopilot, stuck in distraction mode. If you've never learned to sustain a thought without getting lost in distractions, your focus will always be unstable. If you've never experienced what it's like to silence both external and internal stimuli, staying focused will always feel like a struggle. The good news? Just like any other skill, focus can be strengthened. And the first step is understanding how to prepare your brain to focus without burning out. Think about it. How many opportunities have you already missed because you believed you couldn't do it? How many times have you wanted to learn something new, change careers, develop a skill, but your mind sabotaged you with exhaustion, distractions, and self-doubt? The truth is, you don't have to accept this limitation. Your brain wasn't born lazy or unfocused. It was simply conditioned to run in energy-saving mode, avoiding unnecessary effort whenever possible. But now you know the truth. Focus isn't a talent, it's a decision. Mental clarity isn't a privilege, it's something you build. Your potential isn't fixed, it's limitless. The only thing separating you from your best self is how much you're willing to train your mind to function efficiently. And now the choice is yours. You can leave this video and go back to your usual routine, struggling with mental fatigue, lack of energy, and difficulty concentrating. Or you can start applying everything you've learned here and finally take control of your focus and mental performance. So tell me, what's the first step you're going to take to change this? Drop a comment below and let's build a stronger mind together.